Welcome back to the Power and the Glory. Today's scripture is taken from the book of Job, chapter 36, verse 15. But before I read the scripture, please like, share, and subscribe. It does make a huge difference to the Google algorithm. And thank you to my existing subscribers for your ongoing support. I really do appreciate it. So I'll read the scripture now. But those who suffer, he delivers in their suffering. He speaks to them in their affliction. So this scripture turns the idea of suffering on its head. Why? Because it provides a profound insight into the purpose of suffering itself. The insights are delivered by Elihu, one of Job's counselors, who has a unique view on suffering, seeing it as a tool of hardship and divine correction and a loving way to effect a change in behavior of God's believers. So that being said, let's now look at the scripture in more detail. Starting off with suffering as a door to deliverance. So the main message being delivered here is that God involves himself in the very trial a person is enduring to transform them. And once the key learning has been taken on board, deliver them from that situation in a way that the person who's been suffering permanently breaks a negative cycle that would otherwise have caused massive damage in their lives, or even worse. Point 2, pain afflicted to gain our attention. So pain often acts as a massive megaphone, as C.S. Lewis famously described it, that allows God to gain our attention and teach us lessons we might ignore during comfortable or prosperous times. It effectively turns up the volume of God's voice, encouraging humility and our learning and listening. Good news to note is that God is not absent in pain. He is the fourth man in the fire, and though He wants, He wants us to learn from an experience, and He wants us to grow from an experience, He's always there beside us. The main point is this as well, is that see the purpose in suffering. So rather than asking only why a test is happening and moaning about it, this passage of scripture encourages looking for what God is teaching. The focus should always be on the purpose behind the pressure, rather than just the pain itself. So if you can flip the script and see suffering as a honing and sharpening of the spirit, a trial by fire, refining and strengthening you, you'll feel much more composed during the period of suffering. And in a perverse way, the benefit of it. So remember, if you weren't important in the spirit, you likely wouldn't be being tested by the devil. We should also see affliction as a school for the soul, which will lead to a deeper reliance on God's grace rather than one's own strength. So the application for when you are in difficulty, how do we use this scripture to help us through difficulties? So learn from every affliction and always ask what you can learn from a test, a trial, or a setback, so that you can grow as a person. In grasping the knowledge and elevating, you will likely not have to suffer it again because the lesson has been learned. One thing to remember in suffering, yes, it will be painful, but God has promised He'll always be with you. He is your fourth man in the fire, as I've said, and He will not forsake or abandon you. Beyond the successful survival of suffering is a spiritual victory, and that's something to be looked forward to. The victory of someone who has met with and surpassed the greatest trials imaginable. This is a victory that comes with God's elevation and the reward of joy, holistic healing, and abundance.